Hello and welcome to the bedroom of the dollhouse for another reading from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Use Elfers for November 14th, the day of the investigator. That's right. And here at the top of the page is a visual representation of the day of the investigator. Well, we have what appears to be, what is it? It looks like what do we got? A goose head popping out of a milk jug, if you like, and there's some what do you call them, like, I don't know, clamshells, or he's got one in his mouth too. Could be a swan for that matter, but who's to say? I don't know. Is that a adequate visual representation for the day of the investigator? Hey, might could be. He seems to be popping out of that milk can, but who's to say? Maybe we'll make some kind of connotations for they chose that as we get on with the read, but not altogether all too important. Why do I say that? Well, because what is important is it's November 14th and it's somebody's birthday. That's right. So if that's you, I just want to say happy birthday. That's what's important. But, if this video finds you late, I don't know, days, weeks, months, this is sometimes often the case with busy individuals, such as yourself, I'm assuming. Well, if that's the case, I just want to say, hope you had a happy birthday. Yeah. So, but for everybody else who's joining us randomly, or more ideally to celebrate the November 14th birthday, I just want to say hello, welcome, and I hope you enjoy yourself. Now, before we dive in with the redirect, I just want to do something we like to do around these here parts, and that's roll some dice. This is the DykASSt birthday broadcast, and so we've got to live up to the namesake by rolling some dice. But I do so more importantly for synchronicity's sake. And here I rolled a 1 and a 2 for a 3. That's right. Now, what is synchronicity, you're probably wondering? Well, it's just you getting out in the world and letting the universe show you it's with you on your path. And you do that by coming up with a mutually agreed upon sign, or kind of a waypost, if you like. So, boom, you're 1 and you're 2 for a 3. Now, you can roll your own dice if you like. It's actually probably preferable that you have your own set, regardless of whether you go with my number or not. So you can set directional values to number sets and come up with time limits with which to go in those directions. But once you reach the end of your time limit, whatever direction you decide to go, or from whatever starting point you decide to start from, well, you take yourself a moment to compose yourself and you look around, look for your signs. But you know what? Sometimes the old numbers might not present themselves, or maybe you miss them. Maybe they go right by you. Well, just stop, compose yourself, like I said, and look for anomalies. Look for things that seem out of place, like something maybe the universe dropped down for you to see and find. Maybe it's some guy in a pink shirt walking through a crowd of folks who are wearing just blasé, boring stuff. I use that example a lot here in the past, but who's to say? Maybe you don't see that either. What else could you maybe see? You know what? Maybe you see a goose land. You know what? Hey, maybe the day takes on a theme. You start seeing gooses or swans everywhere. You know what? Maybe it takes off at that point. Well, you know what? Roll your dice and go in the direction that it went. That's right. Maybe you find yourself at the end of that time limit stopping in front of a building with a 12 in the address. Hey, you know what? That's your number. I don't know. I know it's probably a building you've never been in before. Maybe go up in there, see if you can get in. Maybe it's a business, but maybe it's like an apartment building. You know what? Give it a try anyway. A lot of times these synchronicity things, they work out just the way you need them to. So maybe the building's locked. Well, hey, shoot. You know what? It could be? It could be simply an opportunity for you to take additional pause. So roll your dice, get another time value, another directional value. Maybe when you're on your way to do that, you run into somebody who was happening to go in, and they go, "Hey, why are you trying to go in the building?" You're like, "Well, just be honest, be forthright. I was doing a synchronicity walk here." And they go, "What is that?" Maybe you show them this video so that they're like, "Are you serious? Hey, I got the dice out, don't I?" And you know what? They might just join you on your walk because it's just too crazy. It's too crazy an idea, but it's just exciting enough to maybe get somebody else to rally, to figure, to want to join and see, taste, touch, and feel the magic, as I like to say. And maybe that's all it was getting you out there and meeting somebody new, a new friend. And you know what? Synchronicity can do those little things for you. I know that sounds like just a matter of coincidence. You could get out there and do any of that stuff. Try to open up some random building and meet somebody. Hey, maybe so, but maybe not. You know what? You never know what the universe might hold for you. Maybe a goose lands right in front of you too before you get off, and you're like, oh my gosh, there's a little bit more synchronicity for you. That takes a little bit more of the coincidence out of it there. In any event, you're 1 and you're 2 for a 3. Let's get on with your read, shall we? Your month is November, your day is the 14th, your sign is 21 to 23 degrees Scorpio of the Scorpio III period specifically. And your quality and elements is fixed water. Let's dive in. All right. November 14th, the day of the investigator. Those born on November 14th manifest an urge to explore the environment down to the last detail. And though they are intensely curious about their surroundings in general, they are highly selective in their interests and have a well-defined point of view. Their ideas of social responsibility, whether conservative or liberal, are usually perfectly clear to themselves and to others, and moral in nature. November 14th people are often involved in guiding the lives of others. They readily see those areas that need improvement, and indeed those deficits they target may be objectively lacking. However, they must remember that they are nonetheless operating from their own subjective viewpoint, and their input may not always be appreciated. In particular, they may have to hold their tongue where their love relationship is concerned. Also, because they are so quick to recognize the strengths and weaknesses of any given situation, they may not allow others a chance to discover it for themselves. In this strength of November 14th people, that they have little need for gratuitous praise of their achievements or abilities. Both men and women born on this day are capable of subjugating themselves to a cause and avoiding ego trips. Because of such self-reliance, they can easily recognize flatterers and those who harbor ulterior motives. More highly evolved November 14th people, whether they be artists, scientists, manufacturers, business people, or involved in providing a service, always do their homework on any project in which they are engaged, probing, testing, examining the object of their study with minute exactitude. They are both ruthless and honest in putting their own theories to the test and discarding those products or elements which do not work. And thus their objectivity is well preserved. Just as November 14 people are highly observant in regard to the external world, they should develop a greater ability to perceive inner truths, including the emotional and spiritual state of themselves and others. Such a sense of understanding can make them more effective when dealing with human and social matters that impact on their career and work. And because those born on this day make a point of following through on their endeavors, investing much of themselves in realizing their goals, they must also be sure to chart the proper course from the outset. It is imperative that November 14 people strengthen their integration with friends, family, and society in general. And those born on this day who do so greatly lighten their burden and enjoy a firmer sense of purpose that ensures their success. As they are often quite ambitious and powerful people, they need to seek consensus and cultivate their ability to compromise by finding a middle way and perhaps moderating their more extreme tendencies. They can be highly effective and ultimately achieve more lasting results. All right. How about that for a rather well-rounded birthday there? They got into a lot of different areas and they examined a few different things with a lot of specificity there. Sometimes it's just one thing and they drill down on it really hard, but they don't examine too much. But they didn't necessarily do that here, so can always appreciate that. That being said, let's dive in with some notes. I like to provide a little bit of a commentary and maybe examine a few of these things a little bit more and provide some context based on everything else I've read in the book. So let's dive in here. November 14, the day of the investigator. You manifest an urge to explore your environment down to the last detail. An intensely curious, highly selective of interest with a well-defined point of view, which is apparently clear to you and others. And that said, the reading claims you're often involved in guiding the lives of others, noting the areas that need improvement, and your objective investigative observations, if you like. What else here? I'm keen to savvy, anyway. That's what they mean. But I appreciate this reality-based line of reasoning that your ideas are ultimately subjective in matter. It doesn't matter how objective they are. They're still from you, right? How you see things. And I brought this up a few days back, just in passing, because there was another through line in this regard to some extent. But this is the first time that they've brought it up in the book, that this is your own subjective way of looking at things. So I think that's interesting they brought up that dynamic. I think it's important too. It isn't the first time they've pointed out concentrating one's thoughts on another's business might not be appreciated, right? However, regardless how rational. So interesting point to take. So I'm guessing a recommendation of diplomacy might just be popping up here a little bit later in the read. Anyway, a great strength of yours is apparently little need for praise of your achievements or skills. So it sounds as though you might be in a position of a little bit of modesty, and sometimes that's sorely lacking in a lot of other people. And they didn't outright say it, but it seems to be what I'm picking up on it here. So here again, something else I appreciate, but it also apparently lends to your ability to recognize smarmy individuals and behaviors, right? For what they more than likely are. Just a lot of glad handing, all right? At least at best. Other times it can be conniving. So, but despite your considerably positive traits and strengths that the reading relates, the suggestion of shifting your keen attention on the outside world more towards developing your own inner nature is mentioned as well, which by and large has been a running concern for the Scorpio period here. The book too in general, but they've been drilling down upon it with the Scorpios. So you aren't alone in that regard, even if you're said to possess strengths and abilities that do make you more singular based on folks in this period. But the read also relates lightening your ambitious load a little bit and cultivating an ability to compromise. I'd say that's important. But also further strengthening your social relationships, which also just helps well round out and culminate a very humbly regarded birthday read, as far as I'm concerned. But in any event, that's been your birthday breakdown, my little commentary there, diving in with some of the other relations with the Scorpios. Let's move on to your numbers and your planets. All right. Those born on the 14th day of the month are ruled by the number 5, as 1 plus 4 equals 5, and by the speedy planet Mercury. And due to the influence of this highly active planet, powerful intellect and mental tenacity are conferred on November 14 people. The accompanying influence of Pluto, the dark ruler of Scorpio, it says in parentheticals, strengthens curiosity in those born on this day and perhaps a desire to unearth hidden secrets. And for those November 14 people who suffer calamity, the number 5 bestows a resilient character which resists permanent damage from the hard knocks of life. All right, hey, let's dive in with your numbers and planets. What I have to say here. Number 5 in the speedy planet Mercury, for powerful intellect and mental tenacity, which they usually call mental quickness, unless the two are somehow different. Interestingly, though, and I was interested to see how this was going to shake out, Pluto, your so-called dark ruler, strengthens your curiosity. And a desire to unearth hidden secrets, it said, which doesn't sound that dark at all, but maybe it is, because more lighthearted folks aren't looking for secrets. Maybe that's the trade-off there. But especially considering what downright dour elements it's said to confer in others born in this period, I'd say you lucked out in that regard if that's what Pluto confers, especially considering you were still able to retain your ability to recover from life's hard knocks, what with Mercury there, helping you get up and be speedy about recovery. That seems to be a common Mercury trait, so it's good that Pluto and your Mars co-rulership with Scorpio didn't dampen that at all. Well, maybe it did, but they didn't mention it. But who's to say? Maybe it endorses that. So that being said, that's what I'd say about your numbers and your planets. Let's move on to your tarot. All right, it's one of the more eclectic of the New Age metaphysical philosophies in a lot of people's minds, I would say. But you know what? It's your birthday. Let's dive into it. See what it has to say. This could be fun, exciting. It might inform some other things. You know, we have to take it home and start dealing the cards out to inspire our every whim and flight of fancy. So let's see what it has to say. The 14th card of the major arcana is Temperance, which stresses the need for balance and moderation. And the figure depicted is a guardian angel who protects us and keeps us on an even keel. Positively seen, Temperance modifies passions in order to allow for new truths to be learned and incorporated into one's life. Thus, such a figure can serve as a model for November 14th people, it says in parentheticals. And the card cautions against all forms of egotistical excess, and because a negative indication of the Temperance card is a tendency to change too easily with the mood of the times and current fashion. November 14 people should try to establish their own style, technique, and system of thought if possible, and stick to them with conviction. All right, there's your tarot. Let's see what I had to say here. Your tarot. Temperance for a need for balance and moderation. What we got here? Balance, as it turns out, is a watchword for Scorpios. All right, it comes up a lot. You need balance. You need balance. But it really hasn't shown itself as predominantly necessary as yet in this particular read. So perhaps fortuitous. But you know what? Temperance modifies passions to allow for new truths to be learned and incorporated. And so for a curious individual, hey, that lines right up. But it also cautions against egotistical excess and a tendency to change too easily. That's right. Don't be swayed by every whim and flight of fancy. So by and large, a very apt card, I would argue. Almost informs the breakdown in a lot of ways. But I can't endorse this idea of developing your own style highly enough, all right? Just maybe don't go full dollhouse, if you like. It's a little bit too much for some folks, I'd imagine. In any event, that's been your tarot. So let's move on to your health. That's right. Let's get into some health concerns here. November 14th people must beware of becoming obsessed with all sorts of real or imagined ailments. And some born in this day tend to be worrywarts when it comes to illness, and may seek medical advice much too often. Developing a greater faith in the healing abilities of the body and the natural remedies is thus important. And if November 14 people take an active interest in diet and cooking, they can be superb with food. However, excess concern about weight must not be allowed to reach neurotic proportions. Sexual and athletic activities should be kept within healthy, self-imposed limits. Balance again, it sounds like. Anyway, hey, what did I have to say about your health here? Beware becoming obsessed with ailments, real or imagined. What we got here? Worrywarts with ailments. All right, the reading says, anyway, which has crept up here and there this period. A hyper focus on being concerned with your health, so you're not alone. Confidence in the body to heal itself is recommended. Interesting. I don't know, a little more of a Christian Scientist type approach. I don't know. I'd say there's some credence in that. So just depending upon what you believe, and positive mental attitude too is another thing. It's kind of like the placebo effect, right? You can't poo-poo it. It has some kind of actual results in science there. In any event, all that also carries forward to heal the body. Let's see. It's also an interest in cooking and food that gets carried forward quite a bit this period. But also a concern for weight gain is coupled with that. So too much sampling of your own wares, I'm assuming. Healthy limits for sex and athletic endeavors, it says. And also, that's been mentioned this period quite a bit too, as it turns out. So here it seems like an apt place to mention balance, even though they didn't do it. They didn't do it this time either. But outside of the tarot, which didn't really count, they just kind of threw that in there as a conjunctive word there. I'm not quite sure. That's probably wrong. But in any event, they also didn't mention diplomacy either, and I thought they might, on account of getting in other people's business. A lot of times if that comes up, they talk about cultivating diplomacy. Who's to say? It's all about delivery of your ideas too, I would say. If you're telling people to do something, probably not going to do it. So just throwing it out there, not even as a suggestion. Sometimes people don't like suggestions either. Just something that crossed your mind there. I don't know. In any event, that's been your health. So let's move on to some advice. All right, your advice. Keep your moral and judgmental tendencies under control. Learn to leave others in peace and respect their values. Everything is not available for your scrutiny, so observe privacy. All right. Said you observe a lot of things. Maybe try privacy. All right. All right. What I have to say about your advice here. Let's see. Need moral and judgmental tendencies under control. So not everybody has common sense, is what I had to say here. So they let alone have decent morals. So be okay with being okay with people living their lives the way they want to live their lives. All right. Even though they probably aren't doing that, right? So, but yeah, be okay. I mean, with all of that, if that makes any sense. A lot of repetitive words in there, but I was okay with it. So, but that being said, it's hard to do, but I don't know, just do it. You might cultivate a sense of these people going, you know what? I like that you don't judge me for how I live things. You always let things lie, but I think it'd take time for people to come to that consensus. You'd have to put it into practice for quite a while. That being said, what else do we have here? They kind of drill down on that again here, but in a different way with regard to scrutiny. And if you can't mind your own store, if you're trying to mind someone else's, ostensibly one they don't really care about in the first place. All right. So yeah, don't shift too much of your focus and energy on someone else because it takes away from you. I think is what I'm trying to say, and I think I've used that metaphor once before in the past. So this apparently came up at some other point too. An event that's been your advice. Let's move on to your meditation. All right, your meditation. See first what is directly before you. All right, I like that one. One more time. See first what is directly before you. Okay, hey, that's your meditation. It's your birthday. I'm going to leave that with you. I'm not going to throw a spinner and try to put an impression on you about what I think it has to say. It's your meditation, your birthday. But that being said, let's move on to your strengths and weaknesses. That's right. Let's hold up the objective mirror and see what strengths and weaknesses we have. We probably already heard a lot of this in the reading, but let's try and guess, see what we might think they be. We think they might be rather. There we go. Your strengths: you're involved, you're thorough, and you're observant. Oh, all right. Observant, I would have guessed. All right, but thorough and involved, it might not have been on my radar as much. But you know what? I see what they're getting at. But your weaknesses, oh, let's do the real work. Let's hold up the other side of the objective mirror. You know, the one that blows up your face so you can find all the pimples and blemishes and the like? That's right, your weaknesses. You're controlling, you're overly critical, and you're meddling. Oh, you know what? I thought I saw the meddling one in there. You know what? I can get that one. We're controlling and overly critical. Things that can be worked on and improved upon and probably commingle in there with meddling. That's right. Just let people live their own lives. That's right. Be the one that they see as someone who didn't meddle. That's right. You always let me have a little bit of slack with the things that were coming in too hot and heavy. That's right. You can always just kind of mention it. I don't know if that really works for you, man. Why don't you think so? I'll let you figure it out. I don't know. All about delivery. That might not be the way to do it, but I think you know what I'm saying. In any event, that's been your strengths and your weaknesses. Let's move on to those born on this day. When we get into those born on this day, not only get to see who shares your company, it can be kind of interesting to see the lottery you drew, but I like to segue into something that I find important, and that is figuring out our passions. A lot of times I get out in the world and meet folks, and I ask them what they do, and more importantly, if they like it. And a lot of times they don't. And you know what? I think it's a real important thing to drill down on, especially in this life and times where there's all this opportunity out there to figure out what we want to do with our lives. Because too often you get out in the world, you get a job right out of school, and it's not something you like doing, but it's easy because you've been in it for a little while. It was the first thing that came around to put money on the table, keep a roof over your head, and then you just start climbing that corporate ladder, and you keep making the money, and it kind of keeps you rooted somewhere you ultimately don't want to be. But hey, maybe you're not getting any enjoyment out of it. And I think it's important in life to be doing backflips out of bed into what you want to do. It just makes life more tolerable, if you like. But I think, too, there's an issue of people not being able to put in the time to figure out what they want to do. Because it requires work to figure out those passions a lot of times. But even if you know what your passions are, sometimes it takes work to figure out how to make them financially viable. So I think this is a perfect opportunity to not only see who shares your birthday, but what they did to get in the book, if you like. You know, see what it was that that made them famous. And that might just inspire a little bit of, energy into you figuring out your own passions or figuring out how to apply them. That's right. So that you can get out of that job you don't like. That's right. I think you get the point. So let's get in here. Let's see who shares your birthday. All right. We have Claude Monet, the French Impressionist painter, and he created famous gardens at Giverny that he drew upon for inspiration. We also have Jawaharlal Nehru, the first Prime Minister of independent India. We also have Joseph McCarthy, the U.S. Senator of Wisconsin, and he led the communist witch hunt, and he was censured by the Senate. We also have Boutros Ghali, the UN Secretary General. We also have Prince Charles. Well, it's King Charles now. This book's already showing its age now. King Charles, heir to the British throne. Well, he is now on the British throne, and a polo player, it says. But it doesn't say here he's also a water painter, or water paints painter there. It's probably saying that wrong. But even moving on, we have Aaron Copland, or Copland perhaps, composer, and he created the new American sound with ballets Billy the Kid, Appalachian Spring, and choreographed Martha Graham, it says. I don't know any of those, but hey, maybe you do. What else do we have here? Natalia Gutman, a Russian cellist. We also have Edward H. White Jr., the U.S. astronaut and the first to emerge from an orbiting spacecraft, but killed by a flash fire in a ground flight simulation. That must have been Apollo 1. In any event, we have Harrison Salisbury, the journalist, Zors A. Medvedev, Russian-UK biologist, agrochemist, gerontologist, and a writer of Gorbachev. All right, I think I pronounced some of that okay, despite me thinking I was going to struggle with it. Moving on, we have Sir Charles Lyell, Lyell. We got a British 19th century geologist. We also have Louise Brooks, a silent film actress. We also have George Cables, who was a jazz pianist and composer. I'm waiting for a jazz saxophonist to pop up. It seems like we have one every day. Leopold Mozart, Austrian violin pedagogue, family impresario, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart's father. Said something wrong in there. We have King Hussein of Jordan. This is Jojo White. King Hussein of Jordan. Doesn't say what he did, so that threw me there. We also have Jojo White, Boston Celtics basketball guard. Brian Keith, the film and TV actor. Pierre Bourget, the Yves Saint Laurent Group president. Carlo de Benedetti, Italian industrialist and the Fiat Olivetti head. And we have Barbara Hutton, the Woolworth heiress, and had 7 marriages, apparently. And I butchered a lot of names and words today, so I need to make up for it on my side here. It's not done in malice. It's just hooked on phonics. Doesn't work for me a lot of times with the names and the words in the born on this day, as it turns out. Any event, that being said, that essentially rounds out your birthday read, with those born on this day having been conferred. Hopefully you found, maybe you didn't find any inspiration from what they did or who they were, but hopefully me just saying as much put the bug in your ear. Maybe it helps stir the fires up. It's like, you know what, I gotta get out of this job. I gotta put in the work to figure out what my passions are. You know what? Stay in it. Stay in it to win it. That's what I say. You might have that motivation right now. Make sure you keep it, if that's the case. In any event, that essentially rounds out your birthday. Except to say, your season is fall, your sign once again is Scorpio, of the Scorpio III period specifically, and your quality and elements is fixed water. And this has been November 14th, the day of the investigator, from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and you Stelfers. I have an affiliate link for this down in the description. If you're interested in buying your own copy, diving in further, save you the trouble of typing it in the browser. You just click the link there and support the channel in the bargain, which I appreciate. But anyway, it makes a great coffee table book. Great addition to your bookshelf if you're having any parties over. Break this thing out. Get the conversation started. Get the ice broken in either a figurative or literal fashion, considering its girth. Especially if you get the hardcover there. It's going to get the conversation flowing, for better or for worse, but it's going to get it going. They're going to get the party started, if you like. But hey, you know what? That's not what's important. What's important, like I said at the top, wishing you a happy birthday. So happy birthday. But for everyone else who joined us, hey, I hope you enjoyed yourself. and you join us for your birthday read. With that being said, lest I forget, your daily numbers, all right? Get out there, see, taste, touch, and feel the magic. I know my example was the most captivating thing in the world. Hey, you know what? One shot, one takes. Sometimes I can't get the improv juices flowing too well, but you know what? Maybe you see yourself a goose and you'd be like, whoa, he was right on. Or maybe a milk jug or some clamshells. Who's to say? Maybe that's how the representational image manifests itself. Who's to say? But once again, a 1 and a 2 for a 3 for your daily numbers. Get out there, let the universe show you it's with you on your path. But all that being said, once again, I just want to say happy birthday. All right? Take care of yourselves.